All right, this is a real treat. I think you all will really enjoy this. So, President Andrew Jackson, in case you didn't know, before we even get into this at all, President Andrew Jackson, he's like that real cool, like people call him like the people's president. Like the day that he was like elected into office, he invited everybody, literally everybody, to come to his house, the White House. That is, like, come inside, do whatever you want. Like 100,000 people showed up, and they weren't, like the nation's greatest people, obviously, because he invited everybody. Everybody was able to come, and so it was a big mess. I think at the end of it, Andrew Jackson had to be escorted out of a window. But anyway, we're here to discuss another story, and that is it's here's the story of Jackson's Big Cheese. There's a great scene in the West Wing's episode, The Crackpots and These Women, in which White House of Staff Larry Gary tries to invigorate his exasperated team with a story about how Andrew Jackson kept a 2-ton block of cheese in the foyer of the White House. Now, according to Leo's story, Jackson left the cheese there as a populist symbol. Anybody who was hungry could pop into the White House for a quick bite to eat. While the notion of Jackson operating a free federal bar is appealing, the story told by Leo isn't totally accurate. However, it's not all that far away from the truth. Andrew Jackson did in fact own a monstrous block of cheese, and this is its story. So, how did Andrew Jackson end up owning a big block of cheese? The people loved Jackson. Jackson loved cheese. What better way to celebrate Jacksonian democracy than by sending Old Hickory himself an enormous wheel of cheese? Dairy farmer Cornell Thomas S. McMahon of Sandy Creek, New York, hit on this notion in 1835, and he had the know-how to craft a Titanic cheddar. The fruit of McMahon's labor was a wheel that was 4 feet in diameter and 2 feet thick, and it weighed nearly 1,400 pounds. It was wrapped in a giant belt that bore patriotic inscriptions like, "The Union, it must be preserved." This cheese was actually the crown jewel of a larger collection of 10 cheeses that appeared in an 1835 patriotic celebration in Oswego, New York. After the locals all got a good look at the cheese and felt themselves well up with national pride, the wheels loaded onto a schooner and set sail for its new home on Pennsylvania Avenue, that is the White House. McMahon sent off 2 other 750-pound wheels in the same shipment, one to the vice president and one to the New York governor. Now, at some point, let's just take a moment. We've all received a thoughtful, touching, and practical gift and wondered, what the hell are we going to do with this? Jackson apparently had the same reaction when the cheese finally arrived at the White House. Now, according to 19th century biographer James Pardon's Life of Andrew Jackson, the old general gave giant chunks of the cheese to his friends, but he was still left with an absurdly outsized block. Jackson could conquer the banks of the United States, but he was helpless against such a massive wheel of cheese. By 1837, Jackson's second term was winding down, and he wasn't about to haul a 2-year-old mountain of cheese with him when he left office. So, he decided to make the famed fromage a featured player at his last public reception at the White House. It was an astute move. There's nothing people love more than free food. The reception's 10,000 visitors attacked the wheel of cheese with such fervor that the entire thing was gone within 2 hours. The reception took care of the cheese disposal problem, but the cheddar certainly was not forgotten. There are certain downsides to sending a big, honking block of cheese to a warm climate like Washington and having it sit around for a couple of years. Namely, the cheese starts to get a bit fragrant, and a block that massive can give off some serious cheese stank. Washingtonians could allegedly smell the cheese, which one dubbed an evil-smelling horror, for several blocks around the White House before the big party. That's right, several blocks around the White House. Of course, if a cheese has sat in a room long enough, its aroma can permeate into the fixtures. Jackson's successor, Van Buren, apparently found this out the hard way. The publication of the Colonial Society of Massachusetts, Volume 13 from 1912, reprinted a letter written by former Senator John Davis's wife, Eliza, in 1838. Mrs. Davis wrote, "The White House has been put in order by its occupant and is vastly improved." Van Buren says he had a hard task to get rid of the smell of cheese, and in the room where it was cut, he had to air carpet for many days, to take away the curtains and to paint and whitewash before he could get the victory over it. He has another cheese like that, which General Jackson had cut, and says he knows not what to do with it. What a foolish thing for a man to have made such a present to him or anyone else. Now, while Jackson's reception cleared the White House of one smelly wheel of cheese, this suggests that he left at least one other hulking block around as a housewarming gift for Van Buren. According to Gilson Willett's 1908 book, The Inside History of the White House, Van Buren eventually held a charity auction in 1839 to get rid of the last remnants of Jackson's old dairy holdings, a 700-pound wheel of cheddar that also came from McMahon's New York farm. Anyway, there you go. That's the cheese story of Andrew Jackson. Hope you enjoyed.